Good evening, everyone. I am Alicia Herwood. I'm the COO of Coast to Coast Legal Aid here in Broward County. And I want to thank you all for joining us at our Know Your Rights clinic for public benefits as well as disability rights and COVID-19. First, I want to thank Mark Reyes, who is the Vice President of Program Impact at Urban League of Broward County. And thank him for joining us, for Urban League being a partner, and for Mark being our host tonight for this Know Your Rights clinic. I would also like to thank Matthew Dietz, who is the founding member and litigation director of Disability Independence Group. He is donating his time tonight to be our pro bono attorney in this Know Your Rights clinic. And also, I would like to thank Laurie Yadoff, who is the Coast to Coast Legal Aid Director of Economic Advocacy and Community Health, for all of them giving their time this evening to provide this community information and legal rights at this clinic. The one thing I want to say just to start off is a reminder for anyone watching is that the attorneys here tonight can't provide specific legal information, legal advice on your case, because that would violate attorney-client privilege. So keep that in mind, but they're going to be providing a lot of legal information to frequently asked questions and other things that are going on in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. You can post your questions in the chat on Facebook Live and we'll screen those in as we go along. But again, thank you for participating tonight, and I'm going to turn it over to Mark as our host. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alicia, and good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Mark Reyes. I'm the Vice President of Program Impact with the Urban League of Broward County, and welcome to this Facebook Live session. So we are, as Alicia said, we're gonna ask some questions, get some answers around unemployment, SNAP, COVID-19 related stimulus, and the like. And again, please do post your questions and we'll get to as many as we can. And if you can make them applicable to the most number of people, that would be really great. So why don't we get started? We know that there's a lot of issues and concerns around food insecurity right now. And so, Laurie, if you can talk a little bit about SNAP benefits, are there any additional benefits under COVID-19? If so, what are they? How long are they available for?
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me. Well, the SNAP benefits have been increased so far for the months of March, April, and May. And the increase is that you would get an increase to the maximum amount for your household number. So if you're an individual and you were receiving, let's say, $16 or $12 a month because you have disabilities and you have too much income for the full amount, during the months of March, April, and May, that would be increased to $194. You won't get a letter saying that, but that will be in your account. So that's what it is in terms of the SNAP increase.
And if for folks who've lost their jobs, can they apply for food assistance even if they weren't eligible before?
Absolutely. It's based on your income, so you should definitely apply.
And how should people apply? Is it over the phone, through the internet?
You can do it over the phone now. They've made that available during the pandemic. However, it's not that difficult to go online, and you could do a Google search for Access Florida and put in an application there.
Great. And are there any changes around recertification for those who currently are getting SNAP benefits?
Yes. So far, they've given a 6-month extension to recertify for those who had to recertify in April and May. That's the current status. So if you're getting any kind of a, denial because you didn't recertify during those months, please contact us and we'll help.
And by us, you are Coast to Coast.
Coast to Coast Legal Aid, right?
Just making sure. All right. So any other things around food insecurity, food assistance that folks should know about?
No. Right now, we're waiting to see if Congress or the state is willing to expand the amount of money that people are receiving. But as of right now, those are the only changes that have been made.
Great. Well, thank you. And again, if folks have questions about that, please do send them along and we'll get those answered.
Oh, let me add one thing. You can now order with your EBT card, which is the card you get where the food stamps are. You can now use that for online purchases so that you don't have to go out to the store. It will not cover, however, delivery costs or a tip, but you can use it at certain places like Walmart and Amazon. So that is a new option that they've provided during the pandemic.
Definitely helpful in this time of social isolation, right? It's helpful.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So how about, so if we talk about, everyone's been talking about the stimulus checks, right? So some folks have gotten them, some folks haven't. For those who have gotten those, will folks who are receiving SSI, will they receive stimulus checks?
Yes, in fact, they should be receiving them to their SSI account probably this week or maybe next week. I already have checked on some clients' SSI payments, and one of them is receiving them tomorrow. So everyone should be receiving them around now.
And if they haven't received their check yet, what should they do? Is there a deadline for them to provide any information or anything like that?
Well, in terms of SSI, you should be getting them by the end of the month, I would say. If not, you can contact my office and we can check into it. If you want to check the status of your payment, you can go to the IRS website to the Get My Payment link and check on where your payment is. And the one I looked at today told me that the money was going to be deposited tomorrow. So sometimes it doesn't say that, but sometimes you can find it pretty easily. The one thing I want to make sure that people understand is if they want their money direct deposited, in other words, they don't want to wait for the paper check, you only have until tomorrow, by the end of tomorrow, to request that you get a direct deposit. And you do that by going to the same website, the IRS Get My Payment, and then you put in your account number and your routing number for them. And they may also ask if you have your tax return amount for the prior year. So otherwise, you're going to have to wait for the paper check, and I don't know how long that's going to take. So they say by June, by July, somewhere around then, but it will come.
Does the website tell you if they don't have your deposit information, or how do you know whether they have that or not?
Well, I can't say what will happen for every single individual, but for the cases that I've looked at, it says we don't have your bank information. And then it asks you for your tax return, and you can say, no, you don't have one. And then it asks you for your bank routing number and account number.
Great. So again, as a reminder, if you haven't received your stimulus checks, you should go onto the IRS website, look up your status, and if you need to submit your direct deposit information, do that by tomorrow.
Right.
Is that correct?
Right. Otherwise, you can wait for a paper check. If you're having a problem, we do have assistance at our office. We have Legal Aid of Service of Broward has a tax attorney. So if you have complications as a result of filing taxes and there's some issue there, you don't know where the check is going, or there's some problem, that she might be able to help, and you can call our number.
Great. Thank you so much. Anything else we should know about the stimulus?
Well, it's not taxable. And especially for people on SSI, you should know you have a year to spend it down. So it's not going to count against your assets and knock you out of your SSI payments for at least a year. So you have plenty of time to spend it. Also, if you're getting SNAP benefits or any other benefits, you don't have to worry about whether it's going to impact you don't have to report it for purposes of public housing or federal housing. And it also doesn't count against you for public charge. So if that's an issue for you due to immigration, it's not going to affect you.
Great, that's definitely helpful. Thank you. So again, folks, if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat box, and we will try to get those answered. Now let's move on to, we've been hearing a lot about unemployment and reemployment in Florida and all the challenges that are happening there. Can you talk a little bit about who's entitled to benefits under COVID-19 CARES Act and how that differs from the traditional reemployment benefits in Florida?
Okay, so I'd be happy to. For regular reemployment assistance, it's called, I'm going to call it RA, just to make it easy. That's what Florida calls unemployment insurance or unemployment compensation. First, let me say, because some people are under the misconception that they paid for this through their paycheck. They haven't. This money comes from the employer as a result of taxes they have to pay. So when you have worked for a certain amount of time, you have to work for a certain number of quarters and earn a certain amount of money in each quarter. And there's a couple of other conditions that I don't want to go into about your monetary eligibility. When you have satisfied that, then you lose your job. We call it job separation. That is not due to your misconduct and is not because you're not able and available for work. In other words, if you become too ill to work, then you wouldn't be entitled to unemployment. So for regular state unemployment, you have to meet that criteria, and then you're entitled to $275 a week at most for 12 weeks. And that's pretty much it. You also have to do work searches during that time and report 5 work searches a week on the Connect system. So that's what was required before. Okay.
And what about now under the CARES Act? What additional support is there?
Okay, so under the CARES Act, what's apparently happening is that you have to go through the denial of the regular unemployment. So for people who are independent contractors, for people who are gig workers like Uber drivers, those people were not entitled before under the state system. They are entitled now. The people who are entitled now, the criteria is so large. I'll give you some examples of it. You're entitled if your hours were cut, if you were laid off due to COVID, if your job closed, if you were unable to get to work because there was a shutdown order in the county, if you have been diagnosed with symptoms of COVID, if a household member has COVID, if you're caring for a person with COVID, if you're caring for a child who is out of school due to COVID, if you were told to self-quarantine by a doctor. And this one's important because people are surprised about that. If you were scheduled to start a job, but you were unable to go because of COVID, you were entitled to get these benefits. If you had to quit the job as a direct result of COVID, if the employer closed as a result of COVID. So there's lots of different criteria that you would probably meet. In addition, if you're unable to, let's say you had received unemployment in 2019, but you exhausted your benefits, you can still apply for the COVID benefits because you're unable to find work now, even though you exhausted your unemployment benefits. So anything that you can tie to COVID-19, you should probably put in an application.
Great. How would this apply to folks who are in the gig economy? So, drivers and the like, is this assistance available to them as well? Yes,
pretty much, as long as they can say that they're not getting the fares they used to get, or because of their health conditions. If you have a doctor's note saying that you're unable to continue driving because you're at risk, any of those reasons, you'd be able to apply for the benefits. Now, let me explain further. The RA benefits is one set of criteria. That's what I talked about, the state benefits. Then there's PUA, and I'm going to mention that because there's a link on the Connect system that says PUA, apply for PUA. Those are the self-employed and the gig workers, okay? So most people now are going to fall into, I wouldn't say most people, but a lot of people who are not traditional RA recipients are going to fall into the PUA category. And so they have to get denied the RA and then look for the PUA link and apply for that. Okay, and then there's the third group, which is the people who exhausted their benefits. They have to wait because there is no link yet for them. So the system is, I'm making it sound easier than it is. It's not. In addition to that, once you put your claim in and you put in the PUA, you're going to see now on Connect that they're asking you to request your weeks, your benefits. You have to do that. They're only interested now until May 30th, unless the governor extends it. You don't have to report work searches. So if you put in that you're not working, that's what they're interested in. They don't want to pay you if you've gone back to work. So they need you to notify them, even though you haven't gotten your benefits yet. You still have to do this. So, and then, once you get all that information in, hopefully you'll be able to collect your payments. But again, a lot of people aren't receiving anything yet.
So one more group of workers that may be having challenges are those who've only had a reduction of hours. They haven't completely lost their job, but have reduced hours. How does this impact them as well?
They can apply as well. They would qualify possibly for the regular RA benefits, depending on their other criteria, but they would also definitely qualify for the PUA benefits. So you have to report your earnings, and the way they consider earnings is what you did for work that week, not when you got your paycheck. So that's important, especially for freelance people, it's important.
So once folks have submitted their application for unemployment, and many folks are not getting back, or it's taking a really long time, hopefully that's being worked on. What can they do, or how long should they wait until they do any kind of follow-up, or how should they follow up?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right? I don't know what to tell you exactly about that. A lot depends on what you're seeing in the system. So if it's telling you you're pending and asking you to request your weeks, I think you're probably in pretty good shape. If you're still seeing that they don't have complete information, or some people can't even get into the system because they don't have a PIN, then you need to do something. So, probably you can call our office and hopefully we'll be able to assist you, but I can't honestly say when you're going to get your money, and I'm not getting any rhyme or reason for an answer from DEO as to how they're doing this. One other important thing, if you're one of those people that applied by paper application or by your phone because you couldn't get into the system, if you put that in before April 5th, you have to go into Connect and reapply. It's almost like they're not even looking at those. So you have to go into the system and reapply if you applied before April 5th. And I would advise everyone to look at the Connect website, and not the Connect, the floridajobs.org website every day, because every day it changes.
Great. And now we also know that, some folks have been denied benefits. Is there a way for them to appeal that denial, or what should they do as a next step?
There is an appeal form. You have 20 days to file the appeal. They've now made it so that you can file the appeal by email. So if you fill out the form, you can file it by email. But the way you can find the form is you can Google appeal from RA denial, and it should pop up. However, a lot of people were denied because they put their application in prior to April 5th. And at that point, even though they didn't have to report work searches because the governor said that they didn't have to, they were denied because they didn't. So people are very frustrated about that. Appealing that isn't really going to help you because it's just a matter of the system being wrong. So you can put in the new application. If you're being denied because you didn't have enough wages in the wage period, you can contact us and we can double check that. And if you want to file the appeal just to be safe, but our concern is, and we don't know this for sure, if you file an appeal, that may hold up your PUA benefits. And if you're not entitled to the RA benefits, then you're holding up your case for nothing. So, it's not an easy answer, but like I said, it depends on why you were denied.
Is there anything else about unemployment or the reemployment system that we should be sharing with viewers today?
I think if you're having problems and you really are feeling like you don't know what to do next, please call our office. and the number will be posted. And be patient, and we'll get to you. We're trying to cover, everybody and trying to help. And we'll, if you have email, that's even better for me to reach you. But it's very complicated and it's still not straightened out, unfortunately.
Great. And before I do want to get to Matt there, he's waiting patiently for us as well. Another question from Facebook was around the stimulus check. Is everyone entitled to a stimulus check? And I guess there might be a rumor that folks are getting 2 stimulus checks. Is that true?
I haven't heard about that, but I don't think those people are going to come to me for help. But everyone is entitled, except for there's a group of young people, young adults that are not entitled. 17 to, I don't know exactly what age. I haven't had too many calls with that. But there's a group of college age students that are not entitled to the stimulus. Children are, if they're dependent on parents. It depends on your legal status as well as to whether or not you'd be entitled to a stimulus check. If you earned over $75,000, then you might get a reduction in the stimulus check amount. So, but most people should be getting a stimulus check. And if you got 2, there's another adult in the family, so that could be it too.
And that's all based on your 2018 or 2019 income taxes?
It depends on what you filed. So if you haven't filed 2019 yet, they're going to go on 2018.
Gotcha. All right, thank you. So let's turn over to Matt. We'll give him some time a little bit here to update us on any differences around unemployment, SNAP, stimulus, for those individuals with disabilities. If you could talk a little bit about that, that'd be great.
Well, there aren't many differences between the programs on how they affect persons with disabilities. The only part that is upsetting is that SNAP cannot be used to pay for delivery, and that has a big effect on folks that have disabilities. That is something that should change, but many of the other local programs are starting to become more active in providing food services for persons with disabilities, such as Meals on Wheels, that'll bring food directly to that person's home.
Great. Is there any essential information for that older adults and individual with disabilities need to know? Did any changes to their rights or anything like that from COVID-19?
Well, the most important issue that I usually see is people that have disabilities or are older are not getting the same services that they did previously. For example, paratransit may be limited to just folks that have really critical medical needs, such as chemotherapy or dialysis, and the same services are not available. And it's important to request accommodations. So if a person who does not have a disability has a program or a service, it's important for a person with a disability to have that equal access. And a lot of that is slipping through the cracks. The biggest difference that I find between this pandemic and a normal Florida disaster like a hurricane is that there's usually a hurricane plan. People know where to go. People know who to call. People have special shelters where to go. When the pandemic came, there was not that similar service. And the biggest example of that is testing for folks that are concerned that they do have COVID or show symptoms.
Great. Quick question now. We hear, in this time of social isolation, many condo associations are limiting visitors. How would that impact someone who has a home health aide, for example, coming to their apartment during this time?
Well, I just recently had a case that was that exact issue where a home health aide was denied entry because the condominium association thought that the home health worker was just a dog walker, which it wouldn't make a difference anyway. The issue that you, any accommodation that a person needs because of their disability, their association should be able to give. For example, if it's a home health aide, if it's a family member that would help somebody with their normal activities of daily living, even if it's something such as like cooking or cleaning or walking the dog or getting someone up and around. These would be normal, reasonable accommodations, even if there is a rule that says that no visitors are allowed. Now, after the hurricanes, condominium associations got the power to implement emergency rules, such as no visitors during a certain time. But asking for an accommodation of these rules is something that supersedes any of these powers that a condominium would have. The only thing that you need to do is you need to get a letter from your doctor or your medical provider if it's not obvious. And the letter should say that the family member's assistance is required because of a disability and that you need the accommodation under the Fair Housing Act. And that should be enough for any accommodation that should be needed.
Great. And if I have a direct support provider and that person happens to get sick, what can I do, or what should I do to prepare for that?
Well, that's difficult, because now the issue that you have is if somebody has a home health aide and the home health aide doesn't show up, or some other medical assistant, a home nurse, a home health aide, and folks with disabilities have that issue a lot, even when it's not a pandemic, but it's even worse when there is a pandemic. And what needs to be done is need to be the squeaky wheel. And a lot of these issues, when disability rights come up, you have to ask and you have to complain, and you have to complain the right way, which if it's a home health aide not showing up, call up the home health care agency and say, we need somebody else. And worst comes to worst, call up the support coordinator, say that somebody is not showing up, we need emergency assistance. And what they may tell you to do is to go to the hospital if you do need an emergency. And there shouldn't be the same fear there shouldn't be a fear to go to the hospital. We see that thousands of people in Florida have died, but we don't want thousands of people to die just because they're not getting the assistance or the aid that they need. So it's important to still go to the doctor. It's important to still go to the hospital and be safe and take as many precautions as possible.
Great. So again, if you're having any challenges, definitely pick up the phone and reach out to your provider and the like.
A lot of the problems that I've been seeing now are people that are just afraid to ask for help. And you cannot be afraid to ask for help. You are entitled to everything that a person who is not disabled gets during this time period, whether it's transportation, whether it's testing, whether it's medical services, whether it's food. So there needs to be requests and there needs to be demands that things are provided in an equal fashion.
And are there testing sites that support folks who need to take like a TOPS to get there, or how does that work for anyone who has transportation mobility issues?
TOPS is not going to give you a ride to testing sites. They're not going to wait in line while you get tested. But what Broward has done is Broward has implemented in-home testing. So, and it started on May 6th. So it just started last week. And all you need to do is you need to call the number and the EMTs will come to your home and they will test you in your home. And it's very important that you do it. And these are things that are required by federal law. So if the county provides a program and service to the general public, they have to provide that program to persons with disabilities as well. And if you are homebound, they have to provide that program in your home.
And I'll do a quick plug for at the Urban League. We do have a quote unquote walk-up site. So that at least means that you don't need to have a vehicle to get tested. And that's the Urban League of Broward County, 560 Northwest 27th Avenue, Tuesdays through Saturday. Let's turn a little bit to our education system. All of our young people are at home learning, hopefully virtually through the computer system. First, for parents and students that are on IEPs, is there anything that they should be thinking about or doing at this time?
Yes. The problem that you have is virtual learning is not one size fits all when it comes to folks that have disabilities and children that have disabilities. It's very difficult for some children with learning disabilities or developmental disabilities really to learn well through an online system. So the question is, what supports do you need in order to come back up to speed? What there is what they call the COVID slip for folks that are neurotypical, that do not have learning disabilities or developmental disabilities. And those are the ones that once they get back into classrooms, there's going to be a short way in which to make up what they've missed, to get them back up to speed. In my opinion, the COVID slip is going to be even greater for persons with disabilities. So it's important within the IEP to ensure that the services, whether they're additional learning services, additional time, additional therapies, need to be provided to ensure that that child gets back up to speed. So it's very important to have your IEP reflect any additional services that are needed and not take the way into getting a McKay scholarship or additional funding to get those services elsewhere, because this is the school's responsibility to ensure that children get back up to speed. The difficult issue that you have when it comes to kids with disabilities is everything is individualized. So every child's education plan has to be tailored to that child. So it's important to have the necessary evaluation, especially if you have a child that is autistic or a child that has a learning disability, as to what that child needs. So if I had a wish list, go to the school, say that before we do the IEP, we need an individualized evaluation to determine what your child needs before the next school year and what additional services are available to get your child back up to speed.
And then going off of that answer, is it true that Congress is considering allowing states to submit waivers which would allow schools to sort of opt out of providing free, appropriate public education to students with disabilities? And what can parents do about that if that's true?
I believe that was the secretary that was given that option, and she chose not to do it, which hopefully we have nothing to worry about now. But Betsy DeVos did not ask for a waiver of 504 for kids with disabilities, which that's a wonderful, great thing.
Great. And so last question, are there any other resources designated for those individuals with disabilities that the community can access and should be aware of?
There are increased food services at home for such as Meals on Wheels and other programs that Broward focuses on to ensure that food service is provided at home. In Miami-Dade, the Meals on Wheels program almost doubled during this pandemic in order to ensure that there is not food insecurity. And it's important to understand what is out there. And there's some great resources, such as the Broward Center for Independent Living, which is a great resource for folks that have disabilities and for information that is there. It's also important to understand what are the issues that are involved in order to stay employed and remain employed, and what accommodations are available for jobs. For example, there are some issues that folks before really didn't think that were a limiting impairment. For example, somebody that has asthma or that is otherwise immunocompromised. Somebody who recovered from cancer, still on chemotherapy, has some other disability. Those issues are major issues now, while other people can go back to work in an environment that social distancing may not be stringently enforced. Folks that are immunocompromised do need that accommodation. So it's important when you do go back to work to know what your needs are and to be able to ask for additional accommodations in order to satisfy those needs. The other interesting factor in going to employment issues is now that everybody is telecommuting, essentially, is telecommuting a viable option in order to go back to work? And it depends upon what your job is and what the essential functions of your job is. But these are all things that when we're dealing to a new environment where the general consensus is that we're going to have to be living with this for the next 6 to 8 months, it's important to look at a condition that you may have, even though you may not have considered it to be a serious disability or seriously limiting, and say, what do I need in looking at this condition? What do I need in transportation? What do I need in my job? Do I have an issue in using public transportation, even though I may not have an issue in my job? Is there an issue in doing testing? So these are all a new paradigm that persons with disabilities really need to think about what they need now in this new environment.
Great, thank you so much, Matt. So I'm gonna bring Laurie back in. And again, to the viewers, if you have any questions, please do pose those in the chat box. We'll try to get some answers there. But Laurie, there is another question that I have around the stimulus check. We talk a lot that it's related to your recent, the taxes that you filed. What about if you haven't filed taxes?
So that's a good question, and I was going to add that at the end because I realized that I might have neglected it. So if you're a non-filer, that's what it's called. You haven't filed taxes, you're not getting disability or SSI payments, then you can go to the IRS website and they have there a link to non-filer. That's what it's called, NON-FILER. And I guess we can post these links if you think that'd be helpful. And you go there and you provide the information that they're requesting, and then you should get the check. It basically asks if you filed taxes, if you had income, those kind of questions. So if you're a non-filer and you have no connection to Social Security as a result of either retirement or disability, then you should file under the non-filer link at the IRS website, and that's irs.gov.
Great. Now I see we don't have any more questions coming in at this time. So again, we still have a couple more minutes left that folks want to ask a question. Do you have any additional comments you want to provide? Sure.
Yes, I'd like to add something along the lines of what Matt was talking about. So we're expecting, because it hasn't happened yet, because the governor has not required people to do work searches. But unemployment by its nature relies on the person's ability to work and their going out and looking for work. The definition is suitable work. So we don't know right now because we don't have any precedent for this COVID virus, what exactly is going to be considered suitable work under certain conditions, people's health conditions, what preventative or safety requirements are going to be required by the job. We do know that fear of getting COVID is generally not enough to, prevent you from having to go out and look for work. Some states have come up with a set of criteria for, why you may not have to go out and look for work or what kinds of jobs you can turn down. To my knowledge, Florida has not done that yet, but that's going to be an issue in the future, and perhaps something that Matt and I can work on together to determine defenses to people losing their unemployment because they're not able to go back to what they consider suitable work.
Great, thank you so much. Any other final comments? Either Matt, do you have any final comments that you want to share with the viewers?
Well, a lot of what we're going into is a lot of the unknown. And it's unknown for lawyers, it's unknown for policymakers, and there's a lot of issues that are being done right, and there's even more issues that are being done wrong. And what we're doing is we are learning new things as time goes on. But it's important to be aware, to speak out if something is not right, if something isn't fair, to ask about it. There's a lot of stuff that's happening both locally and up in Tallahassee. So it's when it comes to jobs, when it comes to benefits, and the regulations are changing day by day. So it's important to keep aware of what's happening, and if something is not right, to speak out.
And Matt, we actually do have a question for you. For where can folks who have visual impairments get information about COVID and the like? Now, all of the websites, all of the county websites should be accessible. So if you have a screen reader, they should definitely be usable by a screen reader, especially county websites. Most of the county websites that I've seen have been text-based. They haven't been using any videos. So it should be fully accessible for those that are blind or that are visually impaired. In addition, they do have phone numbers for folks that are blind or visually impaired. For if there's any documents or any other programs or services that are needed, definitely ask for those to be in an effective format. I would imagine that they can be made in an electronic format. And and also this is exactly why the at-home testing is so important, because again, folks that are visually impaired can't drive to a testing site, and paratransit is not going to wait for you. So it is also an important factor on that as well. The services have not been as good for folks that have hearing impairments or that are deaf. Many things are not captioned. The public statements usually are captioned, but the language but there is no adequate information written in that is translated into sign language. And it's also very difficult to get sign language interpreters at hospitals on an emergency basis. And some hospitals are even concerned about having interpreters in the hospital during the COVID epidemic, thinking that they're not going to be able to get interpreters. My advice is always demand an interpreter. And if you're given VRI and VRI doesn't work, demand an interpreter, ask for a supervisor and demand an interpreter, and be sure that when you do demand an interpreter, keep documentation of the fact that you demanded an interpreter. It's also something that is essentially important to maintain that documentation. Part of the problem that we have been having in Florida and across the country is the push to impose bioethical standards
on hospitals to limit essential equipment such as ventilators for people that that do have disabilities. And it's something that we're currently fighting because they measure a life's worth in either the disability or the amount of years that you have remaining to live. The rationale is that what's fairer, flipping a coin or using a lottery or picking people by how many years you have left or the disability you have. It's something that I really don't believe that you can value a life by the amount of time left. And every person is entitled to a choice. It also devalues life, and it makes people scared to get the services that they need, thinking that their life's not going to be worth as much as somebody else's. Currently, there are no rules like that imposed, and hopefully because of the fact that there are sufficient ventilators now, that won't even be a thought when it comes to Governor DeSantis. But again, people should not be afraid to go to the hospital. If you need something in an alternate format, whether you're blind or whether you're deaf or whether you have a different disability, that you need items explained to you in a different format, you need to ask.
Great, thank you so much. And again, thank you so much, Matt. That was great closing remarks. Laurie, any final remarks on your end?
I don't think so. We're available if you need assistance. Please contact our office, and we'll try to put some links up there for you on some of the things. I'll get the link for the appeal form and the information there to the website or to Coast website so that you can access it easy.
Great, thank you so much. So I'm gonna turn it back over to Alicia. And before I do, I just again, thank you to Coast and Disability Group for joining us today on this. And again, for inviting us to be a part of this. It's really exciting. Alicia, if you wanna close us out.
Hey, I was getting my video back up. So that was a lot of information. I learned things, and I really, at this end, I wanna thank you all on behalf of Coast to Coast Legal Aid for being a part of this today. Thank you, Mark, for being our host, and Urban League for participating in this with us. Thank you to Matt, who is a long-term friend of legal aid at Coast to Coast Legal Aid here at Broward. We really appreciate your time through the years, and especially this evening. And Laurie, I know how busy you are and how many clients you're getting every day. And so to add this on to the end of your day, we really appreciate it. To get this information out to the community, because as it was brought up, there's a lot of stuff floating around, and we want to make sure that the community gets the most accurate information as possible on these topics that are really affecting our community's daily lives with it. So again, thank you very, very much. And just a reminder for anyone watching is that Coast to Coast is going to continue with these virtual clinics. We have one scheduled each week now, as of now through the 1st of June. So keep a watch on our Facebook page at Coast to Coast Legal Aid for the next events that are upcoming. And to thank you all again for watching on our Facebook Live Know Your Rights Clinic. Thank you very much and have a good night.
Thank you.